Now we're going to dig a little deeper into what's going on between the customer's two physical data centers. Now, let's focus on this secondary site. We asked the question, we know you have mission-critical workloads inside your data center. We know you're about 80% virtualized. What exists at this secondary data center? They tell us they also have some basic storage over there. Do you have as much storage as you have in the primary data center? No, we have just enough to cover some of the backups that we're doing. Well, how are your resources being backed up? Right now, we just have the storage being replicated from point A to point B. Are you doing anything else with it? Not really. We're just moving resources over there, and that way, if anything bad happens, we know that we're covered. Okay, that's good. That's a good place to start. Do you have any problems inside that space that you would like to address? Maybe they say, everything is highly manual. We're having to move things over, we're not sure what's going on all the time, and we're not sure how prepared we are in the event of a disaster. The next question is, what else do we have in resources over there? They say, we also have some compute. I assume you also have some networking over there. Do you have enough compute and networking to mimic your primary site? No, we don't. If you were to virtualize yourself at the other site, how virtualized could you be? Maybe they say they only have enough to cover 40% of their workload. Okay, so that takes you to about here. So now we know that 20% of their workloads are mission critical, and they have 40% capacity over here in their secondary data center. They could move that 20% over here to their secondary data center if they wanted to. Keep in mind, this is just a scenario. I'm going to present you with different ways to think about it. Now we know we have opportunity. We've already uncovered some issues and some unfulfilled needs in their environment, and we're ready to continue exploring further. Now we know you have basic storage replication. What else is happening inside of your environment? What do you do? We also do a lot of content development. Okay, so where do the developers live? The developers for us live inside the data center. Let's put a little user group here, and these are our developers. What resources are these developers consuming? Well, they're consuming our on-premises resources. Do you feel that you have that under control and everything is good with that? Well, yes, to a degree, but maybe not all the way. Maybe they're telling us that the developers are really consuming a lot of that 80%. And they've been trying to talk to the developers about moving out and going to cloud resources, but they're having difficulty making that a reality. Now we want to know, what are the impediments? What would they want if they could leverage cloud resources? What would they want out of those cloud resources? What is the concern? They would want enough compute and enough storage. And they would need the networking to be the same as it is on premises. Great. Would you be using those resources all the time or just some of the time? We really only need those resources some of the time because of our development cycles. So what are your concerns? What would stop you from putting your resources in the cloud? Because if there wasn't a concern, clearly you would be doing it already. Is there something stopping or impeding this? Yes, we do have concerns. Our concerns are around the networking components from our primary site, making sure that the networking in our primary site is available in our secondary site. We also have concerns about control and monitoring. Now we know that this monitoring concern also bridges out to the cloud. So now we have a couple of clear concerns. They don't know how they're going to get resources, and they don't know how they're going to secure and monitor those resources. Maybe they go as far as to say, we also don't know how the developers are going to access those resources. Are they going to need access to our cloud? How do they get a hold of these resources? We've gotten a lot of good, substantial questions happening inside this space. Maybe they come in and say, we also have another level of complication. That layer of complication is the fact that in addition to our desire to get some sort of cloud, the developers are going out and getting their own cloud resources anyway. So we potentially have these other clouds that are living out there. We have other cloud resources that developers are leveraging, like software and platform as a service, things that they're using that we're not providing to them. We have no idea how much it's costing or what it means to us. So now we've got issues with control and cost inside this other space. Now that we've uncovered some big issues inside the data center, we're going to cover one more area. What's happening inside the user space? Users are doing their own thing. They always do. Are they using laptops? Desktops? Well, users that are on premises and inside the data center, they're leveraging regular desktops. We're providing them with standard desktops and they're doing their job with those every day. What about the people who are more mobile? Well, those people have a company provisioned laptop, and in addition, they're bringing their own devices to work. My first question is, are you giving them the device? How are you managing the device? Well, they're just bringing in their devices and we're configuring the email and things like that. Okay, do you feel good about the user situation you have right now? Would you like to make any modifications if you could? Is there any room for improvement? Well, sure, there's a great deal of room for improvement because we really don't feel that this is very secure. We have security concerns around the devices and we're unsure how we're going to manage them. What about the laptops? How old are they? Do you have any concerns about those aspects of mobility? We've had a number of employees have accidents with their laptops. They drop them, they spill coffee on them, they lose all their files. So we have concerns for file security, and there's also concern for hardware cost and replacements to consider as well. What about inside the on-premises users? Are there any concerns there? Really, the big concerns are just age. We have devices that are getting older all the time, and we're not quite sure how we're going to deal with that in the future. When we do replace these desktops, there's the additional concern for hardware cost and then repeating the same cycle over and over again. We've addressed a lot of different things inside this customer environment. What we're going to do now is discuss how we can take what we know about the customer and layer on some possibilities for VMware technologies inside their environment. We want to provide a clear understanding about some of the things that might help this customer. So now let's start down here inside the on-premises space. One thing for certain is they have a manual process that exists between these two sites. We might suggest VMware Site Recovery Manager, or SRM. Site Recovery Manager can orchestrate the migration of virtual machines between these 2 points in the event of a disaster. Then we can discuss the issues of the physical resources, monitoring, and performance inside this space. Now at this point, we can talk about how we can leverage things like vRealize operations. We remember from the layout that we're putting vRealize operations up here, and there's a good reason for it. vRealize operations is going to help you address monitoring, performance, and it's going to be able to integrate with your physical workloads. So you have vRealize operations inside that space. They say, yes, but what about the cloud concern? vRealize operations does have the ability to look out at resources beyond just your physical data center. So you can find those management packs and you'll be able to incorporate them in here to monitor even more. So now we're really getting their attention and we're addressing what's happening inside of their environment. So now they want to talk about security and access and what's going on in the data center. We can mention things like hyperconverged infrastructure, or HCI, and talk about the ability of vSAN to achieve faster and cheaper storage performance by leveraging in-server disks and flash. vSAN also brings encryption, which helps address some of the customer security concerns. And that brings us to conversations about NSX, which can bring major security features into the customer's environment. NSX allows us to bridge layer 2 environments that can span on-premises and off-premises infrastructures. By bridging these infrastructures, we can also ensure that we have the exact same networking happening here in the physical data center as we have happening here in the off-premises cloud. Then the customer says, we see you're giving us a solution to move out to the cloud. What do we do with it? Well, you said you only need these resources some of the time. That's not a problem. I would suggest maybe looking at a virtual private cloud from vCloud Air, and this will give you the resources you need when you need them without having a dedicated commitment for these resources. And then we might add in advanced networking services, and that will give you the ability to replicate your networking constructs into your cloud platform. So now we're actually creating an order form. The customer is interested in buying vCloud Air Virtual Private Cloud. We're talking about advanced networking services. They may want to look at NSX, and they're starting to get a very clear picture of what they can do. vRealize automation allows us to map both on-premises and off-premises workloads. It also integrates with NSX, and it allows users to request resources that are then provisioned against a greater fabric so they can get the resources they need very simply without having to overcomplicate what's going on. That's fine, the customer says, but we still have concerns about how many resources the developers are using inside the cloud and how much that's going to cost us. Not a problem. vRealize Business integrates with vRealize Automation and lets us recapture resources as necessary. vRealize Business allows us to look at things like costing, not only in other clouds, but in your own. And also, if there are any infrastructure resources that you are leveraging or wish to leverage in a cloud that is non-VMware, you can do that too. So we're giving you tons of flexibility. So now we come to the last conversation point, and that is the end user compute space here. We've already seen that this customer concerns around the end user compute space focus on security, cost, and management. We can introduce some topics. We were talking about hardware cost and hardware replacement in this space. One way to address these issues is to consider virtual desktops. And virtual desktops are available through Horizon and also through the Workspace ONE bundle. So either Horizon or Workspace ONE would help them address and extend the life of those resources. Security could also be addressed by the Horizon and virtual desktop implementation because the desktop would live on premises. But additionally, they can go even further with Workspace ONE because Workspace ONE has components of AirWatch that address mobile device management. File security and the security of the resources themselves can also be provided with Workspace ONE through components such as app volumes and virtual desktops. We've addressed the customer's situation and we've provided them with some optional solutions to consider. At this point, we can use the blue marker to propose some variables. Up to now, we've provided the customer with some optional solutions. We talked about leveraging Site Recovery Manager. We briefly mentioned vSAN. We talked about looking into NSX, as well as virtual private cloud. We also talked about advanced networking services. If we're looking at operations, and we already know they have vSphere, they can always consider vSphere with operations management to extend that environment. And then lastly, we looked at a possible implementation of Workspace ONE with AirWatch. Now the customer has a very clear map of the things they want to look at and the conversations that they want to have going forward. And we've been able to take their list of concerns and remove many of the issues that they've been trying to address. If you have some questions come up, make sure you maintain a parking lot of tangential questions, things that might appear during a discussion but don't necessarily move the conversation forward. You're going to want to write those off to the side so that you can address them later. And always remember to be sure when you're delivering a whiteboard that you draw your content, then turn back around and talk to the group. If you don't turn around, you're talking to the board and your audience is not feeling very engaged or focused. So you need to be facing your customer so that you can understand what concerns they have as you're moving through the content. And remember to practice with your pen collection. You can use other colors, but the standard four are standard for a reason. And they're a great way to leverage these very common tools. So now we've gone through and we've taken a look at delivering the entire whiteboard and a lot of different variables of the whiteboard. Now, it's important to remember that every whiteboard is different because every conversation is different. It's going to go in different places every time you do it. But using this methodology and this framework for the whiteboard, all of your discussions in your whiteboards are going to share a very common simplicity and flexibility. Now, in the next module, we're going to be taking a look at all sorts of resources that you're going to be able to use to help you prepare for all of these different types of conversations and add your own creative spin, flexibility, and expertise on top of them.
Here are the objectives for this module. Now that we've introduced the VMware whiteboard and showed an example of delivering it to a customer, let's explain how the VMware whiteboard integrates with other VMware paradigms and product maps. One of the main paradigms is the VMware Vision architecture, which is thoroughly discussed in the VSP Foundation e-learning. You can see how the structure of the two is very similar, with the physical data centers and cloud in the bottom portion of the diagram and the end user space on the top. We can also see how the VMware whiteboard aligns with the customer's strategic priorities that we discussed in the first module of this course. Click each of the priorities in order to highlight the VMware solutions corresponding to that priority. There are a number of advanced tools available to help you in selling VMware solutions to your customers. This topic will mention some of the most popular tools that are at your disposal. VMware provides several free assessment tools that you can use to evaluate your customer's environment for opportunity. VMware also provides a feature walkthrough website that covers VMware's most popular solutions. Each walkthrough provides an interactive and informative experience that demonstrates the main functionalities of the solution. The VMware Storage Hub offers a wealth of information regarding all the VMware storage solutions, including click-through demos, use cases, and reference architectures. A very useful tool is the VMware Demo Library, which is an extensive collection of demos that you can leverage in your sales presentation. VMware Hands-On Labs allows customers to try out VMware products in a full desktop environment that they can access in their browser. Each lab is accompanied with documentation that guides customers through the VMware solutions. And if an end-user computing solution is under consideration, Test Drive is a great way to demonstrate VMware's digital workspace products.
Thanks for joining today's session. I hope you found value in taking the VTSP Foundations course, and I hope that through all of the new tools that you've learned, whether it be the whiteboard, whether it had been learning about all of the different platforms and advancements inside of VMware's technology, that you're able to take these tools and this confidence, along with your own enthusiasm and creativity, and go out and start new conversations. Start talking about new changes in paradigms and new possibilities inside of the virtual landscape. Being able to use the whiteboard to go out and initiate new talks and to be able to create paradigm shifting conversations and ideas within your own data centers as well as those of your potential customers. If you have any questions, please reach out using the contact information provided within this course. Through that, we'll be able to answer all of the questions you have, as well as ensure that your continued learning path grows and you're gaining new possibility to learn more and articulate new ideas regarding storage, network, cloud, security, automation, and more through all of the different certifications and accreditations we have available for you. Thank you again. I appreciate you taking the time to join us on this journey, and I look forward to talking to you again really soon.
You have completed the VTSP Foundation e-learning course. You should now be able to use the VMware Whiteboard as a tool for showing customers how VMware can help them meet their strategic priorities. You can now continue to the assessment in order to get credit for taking this course.